Hello, hello. Welcome to yet another edition of the Shady Ladies podcast. Oh, throwing shade all over the place this week. I would have thought there was a freaking solar eclipse.
Good thing LaWanda had her batteries
LaWanda
charged.
was busy. That whole episode, man. This was
the shade. It is shady.
You could just feel Latrice saying that over your shoulder. The shade of it all. It was everywhere. Like Mr. Burns' sun blocking machine from The Simpsons, rose into the sky over the Drag Race studio. There was no light to be found.
I honestly do not think they even needed that. It's just
for
gotten to
most
the
of
point,
the episode, and then
it's gotten to the point in the competition where the
people
seams are starting to become undone.
Those
Everyone's
hot glued seams are starting to come apart.
Everybody's tired.
The heat is melting it again, and the fabric is just tearing into two. Mm-hmm. What once was a happy, happy family is torn asunder for a brief moment. In the grand scheme of things, brief. In terms of episode, it's 90% of the episode. It was so good, though. Oh, my God. So the theme, oh, my God. I guess I should get to, wondering who we are.
The shade wand.
This is how good this episode was. I forgot. I am Samir Roy, contributing editor and co-creator of the Shady Ladies podcast here at Gambit Magazine. And of course, I'm joined as always by my fabulous sidekick and bestest friend in the whole wide world.
Hi.
You're one of the 5 bestest friends.
That's fine. Top 5. Fabulous 5.
Oh, Fantastic 4. You still made it to the Fantastic 4, though.
Oh, good.
Yes, you're still in it. We had to eat the other one.
It was so cold.
She didn't give me much meat either. No. She was too skinny.
We shouldn't talk like this or else people will believe us.
You never know. But this was I think a banner week for Drag Race. I don't know. I found myself thoroughly entertained and moved in weird ways and moved in traditional ways. And
when you say traditional ways, you mean by an editing team?
Well, yes. They had so much material to work with this episode. I did not envy. There must be so much more out there. Can you imagine what was left on the cutting room floor from this episode?
We got a glimpse into that last week during Untucked when we saw 2 weeks ago, we saw Derek Barry lip sync for his life for the first time. And he cried on the runway for 10 minutes. And they montaged all of his speech anyway. And it was still 3 minutes long. He's like, I'm really sorry. I just want to say
this is more than I've ever done before. And then
and he just has a breakdown.
Bob clocking.
Yeah. Just keeping time.
At
the very end of it, Derek Barry says, can I get off the stage now? We're like, bitch, we were waiting for you to finish.
You can get off the stage anytime you want.
We would love you to get off. We would have loved if this happened about 10 minutes ago before you started crying. Now. Yeah.
Nonetheless,
so you can only imagine the amount that gets left on the cutting room floor after that little sneak peek.
I know, with this Fierce 5 we've got going on here. Oh. With the 2012 Olympic ladies gymnast team. That was their tagline. The Fierce 5.
The Fierce 5. I totally forgot about that. I just remember them wearing all pink, and there was that meme of
on
them
Wednesdays
saying,
we wear pink.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of did rule the world. They still do. They're the little Simone Biles is just she's just stomping everybody out with her little 4'7" frame or whatever. She's super tiny, but clearly so light years beyond everyone, which is kind of how Bob has been throughout this season. The persona.
Way to bring that back.
I had to connect it. I found a way. I had to keep talking until my mind found the connection, and it just kind of rolled right into Bob the drag queen. Because
I was quiet. I was letting you find your way. You found the light. You punched through that wet paper bag.
I did. I found it. The sun is upon me, and it's glorious. But
so
Bob that's pretty much been Bob's persona. In every interview. In every one-on-one interview, you just get the sense of okay, we're talking to the winner, after the fact, recalling everything. It's just the feel of Bob's interviews, because that's how confident Bob is. And I've been clocking his sort of, I think, not so great runway looks. I think most of them have been pretty bad. There's been a couple really genius ones, and then a lot of really shitty ones.
I know, you kind of talked a little bit about his space outfit.
Yeah, that was literally I think Thor even said it's coming apart at the seams. It's an old Halloween costume.
It definitely looked like old. I mean, if I was reading Robbie for having a
bustle that was made of bunched up fabric.
No, not that. Reading him for his Madonna look, how I said that his outfit looked a little bit
costumey.
Yeah, I mean, Bob's was like, this is a Halloween costume that you found at the bottom of a plastic bin in your storage, and you're like, this'll work.
And it wasn't even like the way Sharon Needles used like Halloween costumes, you know,
God,
Sharon
no.
Needles, there was a whole persona and performance behind it that was very succinct and very, very distinct as well. You know, it's like you could tell exactly what she was going for as part of who she was. And with Bob, I feel like it's not completely solidified. It's kind of all over the place.
Where Sharon Needles is more of like a unified vision and everything's there for a reason. Bob is more like, he leans a little bit more like Chi-Chi's way, which is like, I'm just going to use whatever's closest. And then I'm going to cover it up with humor because I'm very funny.
Yes.
And
so
then that way, he's doing kind of like, look over here, not over here. And that it's worked. But now that I think that the crowd has thinned, it
maybe stands out a little more.
Yeah.
But I think that they still love him a lot because I also felt like the way that this week worked out was kind of like, this is where we're throwing the wrench in the works, so you can't tell that these are works at play. You know what I mean? Like, the machinery.
I do, because there was a point in this episode, which was called the book ball, by the way, which is, it also must be stated that Samir's favorite part of any RuPaul's Drag Race season is the ball.
It is the ball, and I was like, they did it with 5 people, and usually it's the episode of 4, cutting them down to the final 3 is when we have the ball. It's the ball that's used to like whittle it down to the last 3 queens that are supposed to rule over every, you know.
Well, we'll see what the challenge is next week, but with the beginning of this episode, the book ball, I think within the first 10-15 minutes, it became very clear who was marked. Because you could just get a sense of it. And the way that Derek Barry was speaking to everybody, and then even just his like 100% batshit crazy line that he said to Naomi, just like, you lashed out at me because you are intimidated by me. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you just told her how you really feel deep down inside, except you switched who's who in this sentence.
There was blood in the water.
And as soon as he started just reading people, but like being like, it's so funny, we're jesting, this isn't jest. It
was weird because
it was very manic, and you could just feel like this is a top spinning out of control. Yeah,
and it started with
and we have to talk about his eyebrows. We have to talk about them.
Oh, we'll get there.
Because I cannot stop thinking about them all day. It's just...
Well, I guess mission accomplished. He was remembered for his drag. It's probably going to stick in his head. But, like, okay, well, it starts with the Everybody Loves Puppets challenge, which, of course, is another thing I look forward to every season. And every season, there's always that contentious relationship, the animosity, sort of builds up when they're in person. Like, they always get the person, somebody always gets somebody they really hate,
right,
or have a big beef with in some way, or respond to negatively. Like, it was season 5, and it was Roxy Andrews, who just seemed like, whenever she got frustrated and really upset, she would like lash out at Jinx. That was like, Jinx was like her outlet. And she had a moment of clarity at one point when she like apologized for it in the middle of the season, but then she kept doing it later on. But at least she knows what she's doing.
Like one does on this show.
So she, you know, when she couldn't control herself, that was the outlet. And so during one of those unfortunate fits, during Everybody Loves Puppets, and she got Jinx, and it was like even her friends were kind of like gritting their teeth like, oh God, this is bad. Like, it wasn't even funny. It was just you being mean.
And I would say that happened to Derek Barry. And that kind of happened
to Derek Barry because it was literally just him being mean. And you could tell that, like, it was this... I think part of it was that I don't think he's ever been made to feel so low. I think he feels really low being in this competition. And the only way he can latch is like, well, I'm a star. I have my own act. I make a living doing Britney, so that's who, you know, it was like he was so thrown out of the loop, or his own loop, just by being like, we want you to be Britney, but we also want you to do other things. And he's like, but all I do is Britney. Like, how do I do other things if I can only do Britney?
Yeah,
And so he became such a negative source, but then by the end, and as we saw in Untucked, it was like he was still delusional about himself.
Yes.
But as far as his reactions to everyone else around him, it was like that little bit of love and compassion that was shown to him changed his personality completely in the way he dealt with other people, which was like really surprising because we've sort of seen this shift towards the end, or towards now, where like Derek, like suddenly it's like, oh, you see, when things are going well for him, he's like complimentary of people.
Yeah, and is more supportive and doesn't lash
like,
out for lack of a better term, because that's what it feels like. When he was talking to Naomi earlier, it was just so it felt like he was picking on her a little bit.
Yeah, and the claws came out after, because really I thought Chi Chi DeVayne was the best. And this is one of the first times that it's happened where like the person that I thought was the best in the Everybody Loves Puppets challenge actually won.
Oh yeah, I definitely. You're talking about the puppets. I definitely agree.
Right?
I thought Chi Chi was the funniest.
Like totally the funniest. Like sometimes that's why you can't count her out, because she always surprises you. Like you. Like,
I thought it was really great that she got to choreograph the Jerri Blank number. Like I thought that was a tremendous compliment and nod to her skill on Ru's part to be like, hey, you want to choreograph the opening number? And I mean, it was nothing special.
That's what always happens. The winner of this challenge.
Oh,
it's always a performance challenge after Everybody Loves Puppets, and the winner of the challenge always gets tasked.
Well, then everybody should be super grateful that it wasn't Kimchi.
Or maybe the ball did have 5 people last.
It did last season, and you were pissed about it then.
I was, but you know what? When I think about it, I think even season 5 maybe it had 5 people.
Okay, so never shall we speak of this again.
No, it wasn't. It was 4 people. It was 4 because Detox went home, and that was the only time Jinx had to lip sync for her life in the show. And it was to an Ima Sumac song, so you knew that she was going to win. It was another one of those moments where, like, whatever the song choice for that week was, it was clearly designed so that one person would really excel at it. And, like, last week, I guess you could say that, but I could have... It's like the problem for me with Thorgy was, like, I could actually see you really getting into this song and really giving us performance, but you totally held back. And Chi-Chi just, like, let it all hang out and felt it, and it worked for her, and she stayed. And then this week, I was really thrilled with the song choice.
I also felt like it was way stronger of a lip sync for your life than the week before.
Both of them were good. I mean, you could tell who the one who was going to win was. You knew before it happened.
But like I told you earlier, it didn't feel like one or the other gave up based upon the other one's performance.
No, they both kept going.
They both went full force, and like you said earlier as well, it ended up kind of feeling more of like a duet towards the end, as opposed to like you versus me.
Yeah, it was really cool. So I guess we should talk about how we get there. But that was it was one of the best ones this season.
Yeah, apart from Robbie Turner's.
Robbie Turner's moment was still the top lip sync moment of the season for me. It still is.
But I do feel like this lip sync for your life is right behind it.
Yeah, really, because
to catch Robbie.
Oh my gosh. But like, yeah, so I was thrilled with actually, when RuPaul announces the theme of the ball, there's like this one split second close up of Derek Barry's face, because it's like, it's a book ball, and it's like, there's usually this moment of like,
because
oh my God.
I think to Derek, he knew that it would require sewing, and he's not good at it. I don't know if you just want to admit that you don't know how to fucking sew. That's why you only make one thing, which is like, a 2-piece.
And it's like,
which you fucking read Naomi for. It made me crazy. I was like, you're
that,
losing your mind.
When they were all getting their outfits together, because they had to do 3 looks for the ball. It was the baby realness look. Mm-hmm. I forgot what the actual name of it was.
I think it was baby realness.
And then it was That's My Mama realness. So it's like you do yourself as a baby, like in mom's clothes, like your baby drag queen or baby drag version of yourself.
And they had giant shoes.
That was the best part. At first I thought it was just Kimchi's look.
Me
I'm like,
too.
oh, that's brilliant. And
exactly.
then I'm like, oh, wait, everybody's wearing the
part
of the
pearl
look.
necklace, like your mom's mom-sized pearl necklace.
You're wearing your mom's necklace and your mom's shoes and your mom's clothes. So you had to design an outfit that's too big for you, like you're wearing your mom's outfit. But you're still obviously who you are, your size. But I really liked this run. I really liked it.
I thought it was really fun.
And then the second one was That's My Mama realness, where you're actually
I felt like that was
your mother.
Really fun because you got to see a little bit of their
each
moms.
person and what their relationship with their mom is like.
Bob the Drag Queen, a.k.a. Viola Davis, forever.
Oh my gosh, every
time he puts that wig on and that,
it's Viola Davis. I'm like, I thought you had like a million wigs. Like, why do you always end up with this Viola Davis wig?
Because he secretly loves it.
You know, and last week... okay, then the third challenge was the autobiographical eleganza extravaganza. Yes. But they actually have to make the outfit out of RuPaul's Workin' It autobiography, like copies of the book. Like they actually use the books themselves as the materials.
Because an intern did spring cleaning recently and discovered vats of it.
I genuinely think that like no pallets that were like because I said
vats. I was correcting myself.
Yes, I know you were. I know what you meant. But like I remember stocking remainder books when I worked with the thankfully
name
long
redacted
gone Borders.
I'm just fucking with you.
Oh, they're gone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Forever.
They're gone, but I used to work there.
R.I.P.
But yeah, like, I think that those books were, like, bought, like, by the pound. Like, all our remainder books. Like, we had...
pound?
It was, like, weight, based on weight, because it was all just...
Oh!
It was, like, how many books are you going to... Like, we're just buying, like, 3,000 pounds of books.
I immediately pictured, like, an animal shelter. I was like, dogs don't read.
Yeah, like, by the pound. Next to the pound is where we got the remainder books from.
Yeah, no,
But, you know, I
thought, like, it was, like, for seniors to read to cats or something. It got weird.
No, it was... I remember being in India and being in, like, it was, like, the Indian borders. I think it's called, like, Crossroads or something. There's a chain bookstore in India. Bless me. Oh, but, like, they had the same remainder books. In the Indian version of Borders.
So is it like what happens to like unsold Goodwill clothes where like they end up in third world countries? So someone could be wearing
guess, but we had the same
your
books.
bootleg 96 Bulls jersey or something.
We still had them at the store I worked at. But it was like the same books. Like the exact same book. Like the same, like you could tell by the covers and like who the publisher was. There's like a whole series of them. I'm like, I've never even seen these.
But is that where all the pound...
No, they go everywhere. Our store bought them like that too. But like there would be like whole series of books that I'd never seen for even full price ever in the store that were only ever seen as remainder books. So I'm like, there had to have been like, okay, we want to save these from the remainder tables. We'll have the queens make dresses out of them. Like, I was like the book lover in me was like I think I said this on Twitter, like the schizophrenic book lover in me was loving the challenge because it's such a great like conceptual idea, like giving them this really odd material to work with that you can do a million things with that would be interesting.
Have they ever done a Project Runway challenge with books?
I'm sure they've done something with paper. They've done lots of things with unconventional materials.
They did something with like the inside of cars, obviously like a car sponsor of the show, like a Ford Fusion or some shit like that. But
I'm pretty sure that they've done something like I still think of this first season when Austin made that dress out of corn husks. Like the first challenge.
Did it look anything like Naomi Smalls' Scarecrow?
Well, it was actually really, really well constructed, but he didn't put it in the refrigerator, so they kind of wilted. But even so, I think he still won the challenge because it was.
I feel like it's not something you think about, probably.
Well, yeah, because like everyone else.
I'm gonna go ahead and put my corn husk dress in a walk-in fridge.
They gave you remember that challenge? They gave everybody like $10 or $50 or something like that, and it's like they took them to a grocery store and they're like, you have to buy the materials for your first challenge from here. Whatever you can buy. So people bought like lawn chairs and tore like the piping and rubber and stuff out of. Like they did all sorts of things, but the most original thing was somebody using the corn husks, and I've never forgotten it ever since.
Clearly.
And I don't think anybody who ever watched that first season ever forgot that because it was such a brilliant moment. You're like, oh my god, you are a genius, and he really was. Like he still is a crazy mad genius, and so it was gonna be. I knew it was gonna be fun to see what they came up with, but then I'm like, they're destroying books.
Well, they're just destroying RuPaul's book.
I know, but it's just like, that's probably what happens to his book, like, in some parts of the South.
Probably.
Or some deep pockets of California.
At least this is intentional.
But it was like, so that part of me was like, why are you doing that to books? I mean, I've not really read that book, so I don't know if it's any good, but I don't want it burned. Did it come out last year?
When did that come out?
I never bought it. Michelle, but I love that moment on the judging panel when every one of them held up a book that they
I can't believe it. I mean, I knew that David and Amy Sedaris, who are the guest judges, obviously, this week, who I love and are hysterical. I knew they both wrote books because I have Amy Sedaris' craft book and I have, obviously, a bunch of David Sedaris.
Well, I was going to say, like, we read, like, I just like David Sedaris. He's like the atypical gay man, but totally typical. He likes to think that he's not as typical of everyone else, and I'm like, I know that you find hot guys hot. You can't pretend you don't. You're just like the rest of us.
Only show me his picture if he's hot.
We were talking about a dumpy kid from the Harry Potter movies.
Jesus Christ.
So that was the character in the book. They cast him to look like that, and they made him over to look like that in the movie. So you don't expect them to like grow up to be hot. And I'm not even talking about Neville. I'm talking about
good. I was about to add that disclaimer. I'm glad you went.
Well, I knew that was terrible casting in the second year when Neville got taller and skinnier. I'm like, Neville is supposed to be short, sad looking, and overweight, and this kid's like shooting up like a beanpole, and he's really thin, and I'm not getting the character at all out of him. And then he turned out to be, like, super hot when he grew up into, like, a man. And I'm like, oh, Attitude Magazine, come on.
Oh, my God.
Come on, underwear.
Well, David Sedaris.
Sedaris was there.
I'm sure he also has that. Would you say Men's Health magazine?
No. Oh my goodness! I'm sure he has the same taste. But but he was. I just love that moment because it was book inspired that they had a actually well-known gay author who's still popular and sells to everybody, and then his sister who's equally brilliant as an actress and performance artist and comedian. And I just thought
and even as a siblings, there's one of
the energy between them, even though they were like far apart, was like,
I'm pretty sure you can't seat them together because it's too much.
Oh my God, I would have loved to have seen that, though.
But there's a really funny story in Me Talk Pretty One Day where he talks about how him and David Sedaris and Amy have gone out to lunch and they are on the subway and she gets off and they're in a super packed car, and right as she gets off, she turns to him and is like, "Good luck with your rape case," and the door's shut, and it's just David Sedaris and an entire group of people that he doesn't know on a cramped New York subway train. He's like, "That was the most uncomfortable ride in my life." And I just remember laughing so hard. They
would have been like, "No, really, it's my sister, and she's just a bitch."
Yeah.
Like, do you get it? Like, do you just want it? Like, I'm really not.
Don't fall for her trap. It's a trap, you guys.
You fell for it. But they were such good guest judges. They
really were.
They weren't just trying to be like, oh, I'm going to try to be the perfect critical judge.
No.
They were like, no, they like just said what they meant. They were also really funny. And they kind of like spoke really like openly. Like it didn't feel guarded.
But
it
I
didn't
also feel like
put
they
on
have
for the camera.
obviously like a knowledge of drag, and we're not like, I wouldn't stop on this page.
Yeah.
I would stop on this page. And I thought the Jerri Blank tribute was really funny.
It was so good. I was like, and it was so unconventional for the show. I thought it was like a nice step out into left field.
Yeah.
You know, that like, I thought totally fit the show. I think RuPaul, like, in times he like shows, it's like, no, I really like expect drag to be like this. Like, I want it to be different. I don't want to give you just the same look every time.
And I have to say, I mean, obviously you knew even from like the rehearsal that Bob was gonna do a great job, and he really did. He was super funny. But Naomi, I thought, for not ever
didn't know what the
hell Strangers with Candy was.
She's like, somebody please tell me, and I'm like,
it was so cute.
I'm like, oh my God, because it's one of those moments where you're like, everyone else has watched it,
and she's 21 though, so you
she's
forget that it completely.
But like, Chi-Chi's not that old, and Chi-Chi got it.
She's like 26.
Oh, I guess 5 years is actually enough.
It is.
Yeah.
I feel like if you were any younger than Chi-Chi, it might have gone over your head. Like, in terms of not like the.
It wasn't part of like your world as when you were at the age that like, because a lot of teenagers
and anybody that you hang out with probably doesn't know about it, and maybe their older sibling does, but they're not going to tell you.
Yeah, like teenagers to 20-somethings is really the audience that like grasped onto that show. I think. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure there were older adults in there too, but that was like, I think the core audience was like, all of us just like latched onto this strange, weird character in this strange, weird show, and I loved it. So it was fun to see somebody bring it back. I don't think I've seen anybody really try to do anything like that. And then to have Amy Sedaris there, who is just...
I thought it was really nice, and she looked very pleased. But I was so impressed with Naomi for having no clue
that she pulled it off.
What was happening. And she still stayed her, which I thought was also commendable.
Like, they were all, like, even though they were kind of reading Derek a little bit for being sober, like, I don't know what Derek... I'm like, I liked that Derek was, like, totally off the wall and, like, letting go. I'm like, this is actually good for Derek. I have to agree with Ross.
He tries the hardest for sure. Like, he's so eager to please, and you can tell he is so used to always being the best and wants to show that he's listening. And I do think that he did take some of the critique in a weird way. Not in a weird way, but maybe not what you or I would possibly do, or even anybody else on that show, how they would take it, or how they've even incorporated it. Like Naomi, and I think they made a point of this. Yeah, they did make a point of this on the judging panel, that even though Naomi's only 21, she can take feedback and actually not make excuses and just go and do it. And you see it the very next week.
There's not a lot of drama about her and her critiques.
No.
Never, not in Untucked, not in the show. She just kind of like keeps going for it.
Yeah.
And that, I think, says a lot. Like, she's not super vocal about it. I think it really stands in her favor.
And she also doesn't need to constantly state how hard she's worked and how much she's suffered and this, that, and the other thing. And
that's because people who, like I said, I think it really was just like an issue of stability. Like, when you feel unstable, you feel off kilter, like people like Derek will respond, but like they have to desperately try to build themselves up in some way. So that's why there was like such a big thing about like hot gluing versus sewing a hem. And it's like, that was the only thing that he had to hang on to in that moment was like, well, I sewed and you didn't sew, and sewing is more difficult than hot gluing. It's like, well, yeah, that may well be true.
That read so much like a last-ditch effort to save himself. And in the end, made him look like an asshole.
But he hung on to it even in a time when there weren't judges around.
But that's what he does. He's like a rabid dog almost when he gets a hold of a topic, like with Naomi in this past
whole episode.
He just would not let it go. It felt really, that's why I said it felt like he was picking on him and bullying him a little bit, because it felt like that, because it was so
because he found
in
something that he could say.
Yeah.
Because they both were kind of saying things that were kind of true to each other. They were not really like saying things that were untrue. They were just being really cruel about saying something. Yes, honestly.
Exactly.
And it was like, so it was like, oh, well, that's kind of true about you, Derek. Oh, that's actually kind of true about you, Naomi. Like, the idea that, like, Naomi Smalls, like, who is Naomi Smalls? What is your actual Naomi is right when she says about Derek that, drag, like, you have to do your makeup, like, drag, not, you're just doing, like, fish makeup. You're just doing, like, to look like the way an actual woman would do her face, and your face can look feminine with that makeup, but that's not what drag is. Like, Naomi's right about that, but then Derek was also right about, like, you don't have, like, a real drag personality. Like, there's no unifying thing about you.
But I do feel like it's harder to hear that from someone like Derek, whose drag persona is Britney Spears, or at least has been.
That's the thing. It makes it difficult to listen to, but he's not wrong.
No, I'm not saying that he's wrong, but I think it would have a different impact if it came from someone like Chi-Chi. Or even like Kimchi is what I really meant to say.
Well, Kimchi's usually pretty honest with everybody about how she feels about everything. But she's not...
Didn't embrace the materials.
Didn't embrace the materials. Well, that's true, because everyone else is making their dresses out of pieces of the books. Even Derek...
We'll get to that, but... what were you saying about Naomi?
But I was saying, like, Naomi was right about Derek, and a lot of the time Derek was right about Naomi, but it was, like, part of this contentious battle to see who could, like, one-up the other one. At first, Naomi wasn't going to play along, and then it was like, no, now I have to play. And I've got better claws than you packed for my looks, so you better watch out, Alley Cat.
But I also feel like Naomi was the bigger person as well, because...
It's true, because in the end, Naomi is like... I think Naomi also realized that in that moment, she had to be the bigger person, because she could see the insecurities and the, like, things weighing down on Derek, and she's like, and I...
Well, even if I was Derek even said, it really felt like he was talking about himself, and he was just, like, lashing out. It was kind of crazy. Oh, yeah, no, totally. He just is a very interesting... the reality show didn't bring out the best qualities.
I mean, I'd still go see his Britney show.
I know. I'm not trying to shade that. I'm just trying to say him...
But it's like...
him as a person...
Well, no, I'm not saying that you are. I'm just saying that, like, he's good enough that I would still be interested in seeing his show, because I want to see what he does really, because this wasn't really the outlet for him to do what he does really well. So he's like, I was brought here because I'm really good at what I do, but that's not what they want me to do entirely. I still think that he should have just played every challenge as Britney, but, just basically turning whatever the challenge was into, like, a version of it that Britney would do.
That's...
Like, I would have been fine with that. I said it before, I'll say it again, but he didn't do that.
That would probably have been the best strategy for him, but he did choose to discover himself on the show, so to speak. And that never works out for anybody on this show.
So all the shade that was, like, all of them, like, sniping at each other, like, attacking each other, like two rabid honey badgers.
No, my favorite was Bob's interview segment where he's like, the shade, like, killed me.
And Kimchi's like,
Kimchi was also very correct. Everybody kind of tried to stay out of it. But I did feel it was a little funny that everybody was also trying to read Naomi like, you're just a model. Modeling's not that hard. I'm like,
I don't know that modeling wasn't that hard, but she was also trying to reject being like that was her persona. They're like, well, why don't you just own that? Like, that's a pretty, like, what you have, everybody has that. And it was interesting because, like, this episode... I've been saying all along, like...
Bob finally got emotional twice.
Bob cannot win unless he shows us he has a heart, and the show's going to have to do something to do that. That's the only way you'll know that he'll win. Because if he doesn't, it's going to be like Ginger Minge, where it doesn't sell. Like, you never got, like, a heartfelt moment with Ginger Minge, except for that one story. She's like, oh, this lady with cancer used to come to our shows, and we went to her nursing home, and she didn't come. And it was like, her telling the story to all the other old bitter
Well,
queens
I
and not
actually thought
helping.
Ginger Minch got a video message from her husband, and that was very sweet.
That was an Untucked, though. But I mean, like, on the actual show.
All
and
right,
even then,
fine.
But even then, it was like, you know, who's not going to cry when, like, the person they want to have sex with and spend all their time with, they haven't been around for, like, 8 weeks, suddenly is, like, talking to them. It's like, oh, my God, I'd cry, too. But, you know, but I meant, like, in terms of, like, how they played the game. So Bob's still very much playing the game, but had a genuine, heartfelt moment. I was like, this is the moment they needed to show for us to know for sure if Bob's just going to run away with this, which is pretty much how it still feels. Even though this episode, like, the ending was like, you know, they built you up to, like, an ending that you didn't quite expect. Like, first, like you said, Naomi and Derek's moment where Naomi's like, I was really mean, I should do something nice, whatever she needs to, I'm going to help her. And she tried.
Oh my God,
she tried.
Eyebrows!
Because they're like, finally, I'm going to change my eyebrows.
Okay, so I have a really fun story about eyebrows. And I feel like Derek Barry can relate.
The eyebrows.
In high school,
Eyebrow gate.
I decided I'm going to pluck my own eyebrows. I decided the easiest way, don't look at them right now, they really need to get
I know,
I'm
like, where's the original thing you
can
did to
still
them?
see there's a little bald spot. Because I like screwed up my eyebrows so poorly. Didn't ask anyone for help because that's not really my style.
Maybe you should get that medication that Brooke Shields sells.
Yeah, but that's for eyelashes. Then I'm gonna grow eyelashes on my forehead.
Damn it, it's
weird.
eyelashes. Okay,
and then
fine.
you'll be to blame.
No, it won't be my fault. You took the pill.
I think it's like a serum.
Whatever
it doesn't
the
matter.
hell it is.
It doesn't matter.
So you plucked your own eyebrows.
So, fun fact though, it was actually a picture. So somebody had once told me that you just have to like look at a picture like whose eyebrows you want, and it was actually Britney Spears. So I had that in the bathroom taped to the mirror, and I was plucking them, and they weren't quite even, and I just kept plucking one and plucking the other. And eventually I ended up with an eyebrow that was probably about like an inch long, and one that was like regular sized. I had like basically no eyebrow, and then like one kind of regular but like fucked up shaped eyebrow. And Derek Barry's eyebrows look like my eyebrows in high school. And it's very funny that it just happened to be a tie with Britney Spears.
I was going to say, you had to pull a Joan Crawford and paint them in.
I did. I thought actually even about getting like cosmetic like tattoos. I was like, it's so bad. I don't know how long. It took forever to grow back. It was crazy. I think I spent most of 9th grade with not one eyebrow. It was not a good look. And Derek Barry's look was also not a good look. His eyebrows made me crazy. He looked nuts. It was not good. It was
bizarre. Like someone else said, it looks like Daddy going out for the first time in drag.
Bob said that, and that was totally true.
One of my friends said that Derek looked like Liza before the makeup was even done. Like...
It's accurate.
Oh, it was so
I feel like that's
accurate.
The best read of that. It's so insane.
I'm like, oh my God, you're right. It was so tragic. It was so tragic.
They were trying really hard to help her.
They were like, you know, like you spend years developing this, like you can't learn it in 2 hours.
Just like you shouldn't make your very first sewing dress, your hand sewn dress, or even machine sewn dress on RuPaul's Drag Race. You shouldn't do your eyebrows for the first time on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Right.
It's not going to end well.
You have to practice this before you get there, but it's like he didn't even think he had to change anything. It's
the hubris that sends him home.
Partially, yes, because his outfit. Oh my God! Okay, you had to go through the runway looks.
Well, let's go through the runway looks because we pretty much got through everything because there wasn't any major drama leading up to the runway.
I mean, once it got to that point, it was like really sweet, like how much everyone was really trying to rally. Like I think everybody kind of through that whole shady business saw maybe a little more of Derek and maybe understood what was going on with him a little bit. I think there was a little, obviously way more with his mom. That was on the cutting room floor.
There was a lot of mama issues.
There was, like everyone else had great moms, and then Derek's mom, that was, you know, he thought that she was going to be really supportive, and she ended up not really being supportive at all. And it kind of crushed him because she was like his idol. And he's like, well, she still taught me valuable things, you know, but like, there's, you know, I feel like, so people I don't know if that necessarily softened to him, but they decided to not give in to the instinct to react with the same energy that he was putting out. Mm-hmm. So like, maybe he needs someone to give him a different kind of energy too, to bring him away from this kind of very sort of dark and sad place that it seemed like he was kind of in a lot of the time, which created so much of that negative talk that he was just spewing constantly. And then, like you said, when we won that challenge, he was like different person when he got a good critique. And then when people helped him, he was totally different and untucked. Like telling Chi-Chi, who he was bitching about using hot glue, telling Chi-Chi how amazing Chi-Chi is and how brilliant this outfit is and how creative she is. And we'll get to Chi. Let's just start with Chi-Chi. We're talking about her anyways, because I loved, really my favorite was the one made out of books. It was the autobiographical eleganza extravaganza, because I felt like the majority of the baby realness looks were kind of similar. There was really not really any edge, I think.
I mean, Naomi came out in a diaper.
Naomi's diaper was funny. It was really like what they wrote.
Yeah, I thought the voiceover was very sweet, and you got to know a lot about them from a little bit of time that they spent on the runway.
Yeah.
I did feel like Derek Barry's voiceover was the weakest, personally. Especially the bit about his mom. It kind of just bummed me out.
And the dress that he had a picture of, that he made a nightgown
and
of.
And the eyebrows. It was the eyebrows.
His
eyebrows were crazy. And then he came, oh my God. The eyebrows really made quite the entire difference. Because, like, I guess I'm obviously going to talk about Derek Barry first. He came out, and his whole story was about how when he was younger, he liked to pretend to be Ariel in the bathtub, how that never tipped his mother off, I'm not really entirely sure, but He wanted to be the Little Mermaid. So he came out dressed like Ariel in like a green sequency dress and a red wig and these eyebrows that made him... I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It didn't help. It looked
you
so
could just tell
bad.
It was
so
the whole,
distracting.
all of the makeup was, and not only that, it didn't blend the lower half of his face. It wasn't blended with the color in the lower half of his face either. And
he did like a halfway makeup job or contouring job on like his cheekbones too. That wasn't really quite blended right either. It didn't give like a 3D effect like he was maybe trying to go for. And then his second look was his mom in a nightgown and talking about the night that he was conceived, which, okay, that's a little creepy. I'm sorry.
It's like he's imagining the dress that his mother's wearing in the picture. He reimagined it as the nightgown when he's playing his mom, as the nightgown that was worn when his mother conceived him.
It's a little Norman Batesy, honestly.
It kind of is. We were talking about that earlier.
Yes. And the curly-haired wig, too. It just felt like
it was not good.
He looked like a broken Victorian doll.
It was all...
Like one of the defecto ones.
I mean, I did think he looked kind of like a sad housewife in the outfit.
The eyebrows were so distracted.
Well, where they're placed, and then on his forehead, and also the way that they're not really worked into, like, the hairline and the whole look.
Right after he read Naomi to filth over her fucking wig. Like, you're gonna take down your lace fronts. Like, tape down your lace fronts, tape them down.
Well, this was a failure not of the wig itself. It's a failure of creating the full look.
No, I know. I just feel like it's funny that he reads people for, like, having Robbie's harsh wig line, Naomi not tape it. Like, people's various issues with their wigs, and he couldn't fix it.
He does very well, because his wig lines are usually...
Not today, ho!
Well, the wig line wasn't the problem. It was the way he painted himself. Because it was like a face that was not his face. You could tell, it was almost like he took like a larger man's face and kind of put it on. And you could tell it didn't fit. So, like, the hair had to be, like, further back.
Like the first test in Mrs.
Doubtfire. It still felt like his eyebrows were so high up and his forehead felt so much bigger at the same time still, when it shouldn't have been that much bigger.
But it felt like that last week, too, when they did the black and white challenge. I felt like his forehead was huge.
And it doesn't look that huge in his interviews.
He looks like he has a regular-sized forehead.
It's just bizarre that in drag, when he... Oh, my God, there's just everything about it. It was like... It was almost like he had... like a puzzle of a man's face and then a puzzle of another man's face, and then he just squeezed all the pieces together instead of figuring out which one went with which puzzle.
Like an impatient child. Like,
no, fine, I'm just banging them all into place and throwing them out there.
The same could be said for his final extravaganza eleganza. Jesus Christ.
Oh my gosh.
Tired.
Yeah, where it was another bathing suit with things glued on it. And then he talked about how much work he spent... How he spent all night putting it together and making sure that...
And that was the longest story. I can only imagine how long he talked on stage.
Creating the lighting that looks like boning right here. I'm like, I get what you're doing, but it shouldn't
have... And there are words, and then I had to make sure that the green matched the gold, like all these little things. Like, no one gives a shit about that. No one's going to see that. You know what we all see? We see you wearing a two-piece again. We see you wearing a bathing suit bottom and some sort of top. And I'm surprised you don't have a piece of fabric tied around your waist, but I guess everybody talked so much shit about it that you finally got the hint. And as soon as he walked out I was like, I don't know what I was expecting. I was kind of honestly half expecting that he would make
to hear
something. like pants. I don't know.
Just to hear him like he was so delusional about his own outfit, but then.
But I liked the last runway pass, the book. Well, the supposed book gown that never came to be for Derek Barry. But I did like his wig in that final pass. I felt like that one finally looked really good, but his eyebrows...
It was just the eyebrows and the face. Like
it counts for way more than you thought it would.
It's like Mr. Potato Head's eyebrows.
Oh my god. Yeah, it looks like
You can put them on like up here, but they don't seem to go there. It's just where like the company made the holes. They were just too far up. Like, it was just so wrong in so many ways. It was so sad. And I felt like when Bob says, like, you're so brave. Like, even though it was meant to be sweet, I'm like, that's kind of a read.
Yeah.
It's you may not have intended it, but I think he kind of a little bit did. But even if he wasn't intending for it to be a read, it just had it. There's no way for it to be received other
just
than
like how
being
I
a genuine
felt like
comment.
Ross Matthews saying, like, you tried the hardest. I was like, I know you're trying to make that sound as nice as possible, but it sounds a little bit like a read. Just a little. This is a tiny bit.
Yeah, because it's like I can see the effort.
The connotation
is that you can see the effort in front of you when it should look flawless.
Exactly. Just like dudes don't want to hear about ladies sweating, so you best be keeping them.
No, you gotta stay pretty.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear female tennis players grunting. What do you think you are, playing some kind of sport?
Don't want to hear it. Don't
like
care for it.
Idiots.
If I could just have ladies never speak again, I'd love that.
You're just jealous because they won't make those orgasmic sounds with you. Ever.
Oh my god, no.
Ever. But nonetheless.
Serena Williams will break you.
with pleasure.
Sure.
She was in Lemonade.
Oh, I saw.
But nonetheless, I think that Derek's all three looks were fails. It was obvious that Derek was going to be
it really was the weakest one. And you could just, from watching this show for a long time and just reality show formats in general, the marked one from the jump.
Yeah. Like, and then there was Bob, and Bob had a little bit of a story about his mom, because he was like, his mom was really ill, and he broke down because it was so hard for him to see this, like, fabulous woman that, like, is such a big inspiration to him become so withered.
Martha Caldwell.
You know, it was like...
She has a great name.
She does have a great name. It sounds like a star's name, or like at least a famous character in a show or a movie.
Which is a shame that he like dressed her down for the Mama tribute.
Well, she kind of looked like maybe that was just how she like went out to have fun or something, and that's how it's like partially it's like how you remember your mother.
Yeah.
And I actually loved the dress that he made for the autobiographical eleganza extravaganza, the third look, but it wasn't what Michelle had asked for. Like, he thought he was giving, like, you know, Kimchi was right. She was like, well, you can still give like ultra glam with a short dress, but you know, it still has to fit that description. And the dress wasn't ultra glam.
But I also feel like the
really
wig was
great.
Comedic.
And the wig was more comedic than glamorous, because at least paired with that kind of dress, because it was kind of like you could have worn this for the New Wave Challenge.
Yeah.
It's kind of how the dress
looked.
That's a good
point.
It would have been, I would have liked it better than the one he wore. Not that the one he wore was bad, but I thought that this was a better version of what they expected for that challenge.
But I did find it interesting. I think it was either Rue or Michelle pointed out that Chi-Chi and Bob had a similar silhouette of a dress, but how Chi-Chi kind of dressed it up. And it was just interesting to compare the two.
Oh my god, okay, we'll go to Chi-Chi after. Because the thing about Bob's dress, what about Bob?
Oh my god, you went there.
It just suddenly happened. I didn't do it all season.
Did it suddenly happen one night?
Yes.
I could do this all day.
Yes, we'll go back to Drag Race.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe. No. But I liked the dress. It wasn't the glam that they were asking for from Bob. And on top of it, it didn't use any materials from the books. So it's like, it didn't even do what the challenge was, which I do think should have counted for something. So I think that it was actually fair. This is the funny thing. I think it was fair that Bob was in the bottom two and had to lip sync. I also think that it was entirely exactly what the show wanted to happen at that moment, because they needed to show Bob fight for his life or whatever. But I was never in doubt that entire time that he was, you know, what was going to happen.
Oh, totally.
Like, everyone knew.
No, I knew
before we knew the song was.
When I figured out that Derek was going to be in the bottom two, and then when it started to look like Bob was breaking the sweat, I was like, fuck, I owe Samir a bottle of champagne now. Per our prior bet.
I
Which
told
was,
you
I said I
Derek
wasn't... I felt like it was a wild card. I still feel confident in my choices. I still feel like I made the right decision, just in case.
Well, that's how the editing works.
And it's not like I'm not going to have any of this bottle of champagne, so it was always going to be a win-win. So it didn't really matter.
When is that coming?
This weekend.
Okay, good. Good. Yes, but like, I knew that wasn't going to happen, but like, so it was weird for me because it was like, it just felt like such a token gesture to be like, okay, we'll throw this person in the bottom. And like, that's what happened with Jinx. Jinx was in the bottom. I had to lip sync for her life in the ball.
Do you think Kim Chi's going to come out of this without ever having to lip sync for her life?
I think
it could happen if she wins next week, right?
Well, what is the challenge next week?
Well, we don't know.
Oh, we should have watched the preview.
Oh, yeah. Or, just check the Twitter beforehand.
There you go.
Oh, well.
But nonetheless,
so RuPaul Drag Race Twitter.
It's possible that will be but I don't know. I feel like she did get a lot of praise, I thought deservedly so, for this week. Because we kind of talked about Naomi's runway looks, which were, I guess they were good. They didn't blow me away.
I thought his mom drag was actually very sweet. And it kind of gave me a little bit of Rosemary's Baby in the best way possible.
In the best way possible.
I mean it in like before the devil baby spawn thing happens. And I thought all of Naomi's talk about how much she loves his mom, just like so cute, just so utterly sweet. And it is incredible that his mother adopted, what is it, like 6 children?
She had a total of 11 kids. She raised a total of 11 children. And
her video message to Naomi was also very sweet. And just going quickly through everyone's mom, Rue's face when she found out that Kim Chi's mom doesn't know.
She does drag. That was one of the better Rue visits to the workroom during a challenge that we've seen, because, like I said, Rue's been making more of an effort to seem a little more in touch with his heart this season than last season, when he kind of blew up at people, and it was the best part of every episode was when he blew up at somebody. And it happened a few times, and he seemed a little testy, so I feel like he's playing it a little closer to the heart in terms of trying to make things feel more emotionally gratifying this season than they were last season. So, of course, you talk about gay men and their mothers. Like, what do you, like, if you put a challenge together with that as the basis, you're going to bring emotions out of people, out of your contestants. And so the most revealing one to me was Kim Chi's. Not so much Bob's, and Bob talked about his mother, and he started crying. Like, that's...
But I also felt like it was still very Bob.
It was still very Bob.
He said, "You got me, bitch," because he was
like, "I was not going to cry. You weren't going to make me cry on this show."
Hey, those are some skilled producers. They are paid to make you cry.
They know how to do this. Okay,
so don't worry about it.
Like, it's going to happen to everyone.
I've seen Unreal. I know how this goes.
But it just felt very much like, to me, like that moment I think this was season 5, when Alaska was in the finals, and they do the little lunch with Rue, and Rue always uses that talk to people and get something out of them, to get an emotional something out of them, and make them talk about something that lives deep down, that's part of their drag persona. And he's like, what is Alaska afraid of? And Alaska's like, I'm afraid of dying. Started crying about the idea of dying. And I'm like, you had nothing? So you had nothing to go on in this story, or maybe you just didn't want to tell them something really personal. And so you came up with this thing about afraid of losing the magical world you and Sharon Needles have created together. I'm like, well, that magical world went away a year later. They're still friends and everything, but it's like, it just felt like such a
put on.
And I was like, you just had to say something. And she really cried. I'm sure maybe she really is. Maybe that's all Alaska could come up with in that moment, but it just didn't live on the same level as Roxy's, like, I was raised by my grandmother because my mother left me at a bus stop, and Jinx's, my mother was an alcoholic and I took care of our family. Like, that was their story. And then in comes Alaska with her story of, I'm afraid of dying. And then it's like, you get to Bob's story, and it's very heartwarming to see him react emotionally, but I'm like, your mother's still alive too. Like, you're acting like she's dead and she's still alive.
I was trying to read between the lines at first. I'm like, are we talking present, past? Oh no, it's present. It's present tense.
I don't doubt the truth of his reaction or his feelings for his mom, because you could tell You can tell he was genuine when he said that he loved her.
After Thorgy's heartbreaking story about his mom, I was like strapped in, like, I'm ready, just tell me what it is.
And then we get to Kimchi, which is really like the biggest moment of this little workroom visits, where he's like basically like telling him about basically being an Asian child. Like, my dad was Indian. I mean, I was lucky. I was very lucky because my dad, even though he would remind me, like, I know you can do better than this, like, than the grades I got. But he also had complete faith in, like, my talent. He always believed that I was special. He knew that I had a way with words, and he always encouraged me in that way. But I had a lot of Indian friends whose parents were not like that. They were very much like, you're not good enough. You're not doing good enough if you don't get all A pluses. You're not good enough if you're not taking all AP classes. You're not good enough if you don't win the tennis tournament. Like, that's how they made them feel. So the only way they could be good enough was to be perfect and to be amazing as often as possible. To, like, get some warmth from their parents. A lot of parents were still very loving, but that was just how they were raised. And that's how a lot of Asian cultures are. Like, I lived in that. Like, it only came out of my dad every now and then, but he was, like, better than most Indian dads who are a lot stricter with their kids. So I benefited from that. So I really related to what Kimchi was saying about, it's like, I just don't want to do a bad job. I want to do really well. I want her to be proud of me so that, like, even if, it's already going to be a stretch to get her to watch this show, to get her to see me. So that's why I think it's a possibility Kimchi will be in the final 3, because then Ru could drag out a video of Kimchi's mother, like, saying, like, oh, I watched the show and I think you're great, like,
well, that's why I thought the thing with Chi-Chi DeVayne earlier, where she said her mom didn't know, and then they dragged out a video, but then I could have
sworn Chi-Chi said that, but maybe we were wrong.
But then we watched this video and her mom's like, we were proud of you, we love you, we always knew you were different, blah blah blah, and then we never talk about it again,
ever.
It was very odd, that whole storyline.
And he's like, you don't even know,
and then I forgot. Yeah, and then I forgot that we had heard Kimchi talk about all of this already. So when Ru brought it up, I don't want to say dragged it out, but I did anyway. When Ru brought it up and tried to tie it to when Kimchi cried last week over the Shady politics critique, and Kimchi talking about how it's really kind of something that she's disappointed in herself and doesn't want to disappoint Ru, and maybe her mom stuff is tied up in there. I was a little taken aback that they're bringing this up again after having not talked about it in a while. And there hasn't been a significant amount of drama anyway up until now, so it's not like we couldn't have paid a little bit of attention to it. So
I felt like
I do wonder if it's going anywhere or if it's fueling Kimchi's storyline of top 3.
Well, it fell perfectly into the story she created on the runway, because really it was that relationship that made her second look like really like the deepest and most affecting one of anyone's presentations of their mothers, because she's like, RuPaul even said like when they were judging it, they're like, you could tell that Kimchi's heart wasn't in the words she was saying, like when she was imagining like what her mother would say about her. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't really believe that her mother would say that. And you could tell in the way she was saying it, which added another level to the story instead of being something that made it. Well, I feel like even in
her story, she said that like her mother was very sad.
Well, no, she doesn't. She just the story sounds more like oh, I love my child kind of story, but the performance and the way that the words are read,
it was
like
insane.
There's another story going on there.
She just looked very sad and very inside of herself.
It was the way an Asian mother would look, like reserved, but there's so much going on facially. He was really giving a real performance. That's why, it's not necessarily not going with what the challenge was asking for. It's just a deeper vision of what the challenge was asking for. I really enjoyed
his through line, too, about a blossoming flower as well.
Like, they mentioned that he was the only one who had a story. He was the only one
that had an entire arc throughout his story, which I thought
nobody
was
else
really
smart. Had that. And there was like you actually were telling a story. That's how you would tell a story. You'd come up with something like that that's very easy to grab onto, that you can see the progression to the end, and wasn't even the anything that was out of it too.
I mean, the outfits were incredible. All of them were very beautiful. But it was so simple. But it was a simple story that he was easily translated into each of the chapters.
Looks.
So I thought it looked really
the mother
great.
look itself was like traditional
But he had that
garb that he brought.
Yeah, he had that made ahead of time, didn't he?
No, he did.
Yeah.
I think so, but I thought they had to. No, he said that he had something.
No, I thought that he said that he.
But nonetheless, that look itself, like that. That's something we've never seen.
I think the babiness, the baby realness look was from the out of the closet.
Yeah,
but
they had all those things to work with for the whole challenge that they.
But
wanted,
I think the mother Korean
things
dress.
he brought, but it was the look. Like seriously, like David Sedaris said that he's like I was literally enchanted. Like I was so captivated by that performance. Like she was really telling us something. It wasn't just the words overhead and like a saucy performance on the runway. It was like the whole thing was all together telling me something.
I feel like this was the first time we really saw who Kimchi was as a drag queen.
And it was stunning. It was stunningly beautiful. The look was on point, but it was also just like you felt something like really going on beneath the surface with that performance. Like you would see somebody in that role have to communicate. Like you have to communicate through gesture and facial expression. Like a lot of times, like, you know, the wife is traditionally the subservient role in the marriage. And you don't, you know, I still have horrifying stories about some people who will remain nameless. But like the way the wives were treated by their husbands, like decades and decades ago, it's changing now. But I mean, it's awful to think that the only way they could really show how they felt was like in these small subtle ways, and they could ever really speak out, and that really came through that performance as well. So there was a lot happening there that I think that the judges, even though they were like, oh well, the performance wasn't as good, it was like, well, what are you weighing more heavily in this challenge? Really,
I feel like I didn't really hear that as a
they
critique.
did mention it because it was part of the talk where it's like, and RuPaul was like saying, I still think that she's holding something back. So there was like, they were tempering the praise with something so it wasn't as obvious as to who was going to win. Because it was very obvious that they were building that in there because I think it's going to pay off later in determining who gets to the final three. So I don't think it's like, Ru spent a lot of time talking about that with her in the workroom and then mentions it could end the judging.
That is totally coming back.
So it's like, it's coming back again. So I feel like there's an importance to the inclusion of those comments there. But
it'll either be a wheeled out message or it'll happen on the one-on-one lunch.
Somewhere it'll come. And I thought that was a deserved win for Kimchi in the end.
Me too.
Also,
especially the last look. I have to agree with Bob.
Blossom.
It is a work of art. Well, the entire progression could alone have a million think pieces, but I do feel like the last look was a work of art. She really outdid herself, and she really can work with any material. She'll take anything and create
that headpiece out of the pages of the book.
And she always has a designer touchstone that she's kind of not even basing the look off of, but is inspired by. That you can see as couture almost.
And
to a
she
certain
came
extent.
with outfits that were made by other people for her that were amazing. But she also came prepared to make equally amazing outfits that are every bit as good as those ones that she paid to have. So it's like she can make the outfit that she wore, even if someone else made it. You get the sense that she could have made that.
Yeah, I don't doubt.
You never
talents.
doubt that at all. And like, just in every week the makeup skills, like those 3 different looks, even
so good.
Like so
especially
layered.
The last look, the makeup for that, it was so perfect.
I want to steal that headpiece. That giant blossom flower headpiece.
So cool.
It was...
And I'm sure it was... I mean, I wonder if it was light, because it's made of paper, but who knows. She embraced the materials. Bob did not embrace the materials. So Bob ended up on the bottom. But then the song for the bottom made it... What did you think of Naomi's dress? The book dress.
Actually, no, I really liked that dress. I think hers and Chi-Chi's were my favorite book dresses. Like, in terms of, like, the actual
were
dress.
So cool.
Oh my god, and the little pieces in the hair. Like,
and I really loved Chi-Chi's voiceover. I'm Chi-Chi Divine. She just cracks me up.
It was, I love that dress.
I agree with David Sedaris. I could listen to her talk all fucking day long. She is so funny.
And
she's such a warm voice, too. Even, like, her laugh in Untucked when Derek said some batshit crazy stuff and everyone was quiet. She's like,
and that one laugh out of the silence. That's all I gotta say. This laugh.
So funny. Yeah, and that was it. And I also really enjoyed hearing about his mom, and obviously loves his mother and all that stuff. But how him in drag, in the picture that we saw of his mother, like, looks so similar. Like, the haircut and, like, the super skin tight leopard print dress with these big ass earrings. He's like, she told me that you should always have 3 pairs of eyelashes on. I was like, that's crazy talk,
so
but
funny.
yes.
But
yeah, I thought Chi-Chi did a really great job, and I thought that even her voiceover when she said that she could work with anything from paper to trash bags, I feel like that was also very true to
she
who
lived
she
up
is.
to her word.
Yes.
And it's true that the silhouette was similar to Bob's silhouette, but I felt like Chi-Chi's was a more original idea. Like, the shredding of the paper for the skirt.
Honestly, there are only so many silhouettes for a dress, P.S.
But even if they were, like, you could tell, like, the difference in the idea between the dresses, and I felt like
the crap that goes into it.
I felt like Chi-Chi's was a more unified vision than Bob's. So it was not surprising, and still surprising, because you've never seen Bob in the bottom, you didn't expect to.
Also, never see Bob sweat.
Yeah, right? But, like, I didn't really think Bob was sweating, even though he knew he had to dance against Derek, because they knew what the song was. The song was by Sylvester, former member of the Cockettes Performing Arts Troupe in San Francisco.
Did that happen before or after this song, though?
Before this song.
Okay.
Sylvester performed in drag in San Francisco back in the day. As, the look was beautiful, like, in drag, he made a beautiful lady. And also the persona was there, but the voice, he had such a high range that he could sing in, like, the higher range whenever he wanted to, so he could perform in drag with, like, a woman's range. So, and this was, like, his one big hit, You Make Me Feel Mighty Real. I love that song. It's a favorite disco tune of mine.
It really was my favorite lip sync, and it was a great song for these two performers, honestly.
And you could tell, like, even when they started dancing, like, we built all up to this. We started talking about this at the beginning, but we couldn't help ourselves.
When you walk in the club purse first, this is just what happens.
Even the guys in Untucked, like, even one of the producers did the purse first entrance and back away
it was so
in Untucked.
Good.
And I'm like,
but what I love about Untucked is
another sign that Bob, I think, is totally going to kill this unless something freakish happens.
What I love about Untucked, though, is, like, for all of their bickering during the show, you can tell that they all really like each other.
And,
because they all join hands in Untucked right before they get...
And do that
before we find out that it's Bob and Derek for sure. And they're like, one of us is saying it for the very last time.
Zoom in on Derek's face.
It was so good. They knew exactly what was happening.
I'm like, you guys.
Held hands in a
I love it when the cinematographer is, like, on it.
Oh my God. It was like the craft, though. They were all, like, holding hands, like, walk in the club purse first and kick. It was so fun.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Purse first.
I'm like, when they started doing that, everyone started doing it. I'm like, okay, this is going to be Bob winning. They're just, like, they're telling you Bob at every moment.
They're just saying, buy the shirt.
That was Manila Luzon's song at the Battle of the Seasons tour last year. Buy my t-shirt. That's actually one of her songs. She brought out a rack of t-shirts and actually took cash from people to sell them.
Must have learned that from Ru, girl.
But, yes, the lip sync seemed more tailor-made for Bob, because Bob, I think, could really do more of the performance with that song.
But I feel like they love to throw you off the trail a little bit, because
it's also a dance song.
Yep, exactly.
And you're like, oh, well, she's gonna
but I have to say,
but it needed a little bit more.
Derek is small. So and Bob has a large personality, and he is also very tall.
And also had that giant wig on, which he resealed with that super industrial, like...
with
the black tape. The gaffer's tape.
Black gaffer's tape, which is probably
he put it on his head.
Tape. That must have hurt so
I don't know how
much.
he's going to get that off.
I know he's bald, but he's definitely forever bald.
Like...
He's super bald.
I hope they're going to show him trying to remove it in the next episode.
No, I don't want to see that.
They must give him, like, some... but you can't use Goo Gone on your skin. You have to use alcohol.
Or maybe just hot water. I don't
know what they're going to use, but they have to use something, because he cannot just try to rip... He'll take skin off.
Oh, stop it. Okay, we're going to move on now.
But
we're going to talk about lip sync for your life.
The lip sync. But, what was... Like you said, it's one of the best ones of the season. Like, nothing will beat the Robbie Turner moment for us. But... as far as, like, a lip sync where both performers were performing well.
Yeah, and the energy level.
The energy level escalated
feel like somebody
through it.
I didn't feel like somebody was like, all right, well,
like
she won.
Like, Derek was kind of giving, like, oh, I'm just going to dance because this has got, like, this gives you a lot of things to, move to. And if you're a dancer, which we was sort of doing, but then, like, I felt like Bob's energy kind of, like, filtered into Derek a little bit, because Derek's performance got a little more, like,
funny.
Well, not just a little more funny, but, like, almost like he was really letting go more. Like, Bob's always been the one sort of throughout the season
But he's so brave, Samir.
I know, but Bob really, I think, brings, like, through all their fighting and, like, I hate Derek Barry, whatever. When they worked together, he brought something else out in Derek. Derek was able to really, like, let loose, like, not be so controlled, like, I can only do this thing. This is all I can do. It's like, no, actually, like, you broke down that wall a little bit and something else came out. And you saw that kind of progress throughout the number. Like, suddenly Derek was, like, more in it. There was less of a filter between the performance and us.
It felt less like a Britney Spears choreography.
Like, he was really letting himself feel it, finally, towards the end there. And then they sort of, like, came together, like they were working together in this number a little bit. Like, by the end, it was, like, not as amazing as that moment in season 1 with Nina Flowers and BB, like, totally turning into, like, a dual performance and, like, really, really going for it. But I just felt like there was, like, a link between them by the end of it. And it was obvious that Bob was the winner of the lip sync. Because, I don't know. It just seemed obvious. It was another one of those things that, like you said, it could have been both ways. Like, you could have been fooled in thinking maybe Derek could do this.
Well,
like,
once you heard the song, you're like, oh, maybe Derek. Never mind.
I'm like, no, I can already tell from the way Bob is performing right now that, like, Bob's got something set for this whole number. Like, I would have liked to have seen all of that one.
I know. Why not
both
give us
of them
extra
were really
footage of
good.
that? Yeah.
I was like, why not give us more of this? This is a great song, too. I want to hear more. Granted, the song, they obviously edited, this is the radio edit, because, well, actually, it's probably even edited down from that. The radio edit was like 6 minutes long.
It's
There's
edited
a long
down.
disco dance section in the middle of
Last
that song.
time I checked, the song is 6 minutes, and what we saw was about 2, if that.
Yeah.
It was enough for you to be like, I like this song. I forgot about this song. I really like this song, and then it was over.
You make me feel. I love it. I love it. It's a gay anthem. It is a gay anthem. They actually use that song in the documentary The Times of Harvey Milk when they are like, it's a montage about like San Francisco during that era. And they use that song because Sylvester was really big in San Francisco and lived and performed here.
What a shock.
So it just like added up. It was perfect for that moment. But like, it's been used a lot. So it's a very famous gay anthem, that song. So it was nice to see that come back into this show. And I guess I'm happy with the top 4.
I'm glad that we just had an entertaining lip sync for your life.
Yes. And an entertaining episode. And it was an hour and a half.
Was it really?
It was a longer episode. They like took time to like,
I don't watch it in real time, so I don't know.
Well, I don't either, but you can tell when you fast forward through the commercials on the DVR, like, oh, I'm at an hour and 10 minutes and it's still going? Like, oh, well, yes. So it was like a longer episode, actually, this week.
I thought so, because you had to go through 3 looks per queen, so I feel like that eats up a lot of time.
I guess when you have one more person in the ball than normal,
on.
Did they tack on a half hour to last season's ball episode?
I don't think so. But I also feel like there wasn't much
But this
going
one was,
on in
like
that
I said,
ball.
gay men and their mothers. There's a lot to talk about there.
So much footage.
So I felt like it was it was worthy of an hour and a half long episode, and I was entertained the entire time.
Yeah, I legit did not notice a difference.
I think pretty much everyone in the Ruverse, the Runiverse, would agree.
I think
this is one of the
fine.
best episodes all season.
Yeah.
I want to watch Kimchi's Runway like again and again. Just Kimchi's Runway. Like even just the mom part, because it's like, just the whole thing. Just like Bob said in Untucked, was like, you could just stand in a museum. You would be the exhibit just as you are. Like you don't even have to say anything. And that is amazing drag. Because who was it? It was saying like, whoa, was it Chi-Chi? Or Naomi? Who was it? Somebody was sort of saying like, oh, was that really drag, if you're not a performer? I think it was Naomi was trying to go down that road. But she kind of gave up on that because that was part of that like, oh, well, I want to be more than, just being
a supermodel.
A supermodel. I'm more than that. And it's
Which
like,
I don't see what the problem is. I mean, I feel like Naomi could be a Victoria's Secret angel like tomorrow.
Right? And who says you can't be more than that just because that's
plenty of models have gone on to do other things. You have till you're 25. You don't have a ton of time. You need to plan beyond that. So
Bob even broke down trying to say like, a lot of people would kill for like what you have, for
that was
family
a genuine
you have.
Bob tier moment, which I really appreciated.
It was like, a lot of people, you have a lot of things that people would want to have. So it's like, you don't have to wish that I was like this, or I wish I had this person's this or this person's that. Like, you've got plenty on your own that you should be happy and proud of. Like, don't be ashamed of that. Like, you've got gifts that a lot of people wish they could have. So I'm like, that was a moving moment. Again, see Bob Hart.
I know. We saw the Tin Man's
That's why
heart.
he should have been the Tin Man.
That's what I literally just said.
But no, it was Derek Barry who ruined it.
Ugh.
And it's like, I don't hate Derek
And
Barry. Please don't.
Derek Barry shall no longer ruin anything anymore.
Not in Drag Race Queendom.
No. I mean, I think he obviously still performs, so.
Like, I'm not going to cheer because it's really mean, but I do think the right decision was made.
Yes.
In the end.
It should have happened.
Mean in a bad way. I'm clearly a bitch, but you know.
Well, no, we're not going to purposely.
We're not going to have Schadenfreude over Derek's elimination. Just joy.
If anything, it should have happened maybe a week or two ago.
A week or two?
What? I'm trying to think of. Where was he?
Try episode 1.
Oh, come on. I thought that we were not charmed in episode 1, but we were at least like, okay, well, you know what you're doing a little bit.
I want to see more Brittany. The picture was good. But, like, you know, I wish that they did the thing on this show that they did on Top Model where you'd have the montage of all the photos.
Oh my god, me too.
Like, I would
just like a very tiny clip show.
Of all their looks.
Yeah. Well, this would be a one-note look all the way
through.
I know.
Then people would get it. People who were like, "Oh, is that really?" Well,
I don't think.
Look at this all next to each other.
I have looked at comment sections, and all of them are like, "Bye, bitch." Derek Barry's elimination. So I don't think anybody is crying tears.
Well, except maybe Derek.
I don't even think he is.
Derek's exit was odd.
Right, because he was like, "Oh, I came in and I knew who I was, or I thought I did," but
because that was supposed to be like. Naomi doesn't know who she is, which is kind of true because when RuPaul asked Naomi, like, well, who is Naomi Smalls? I'm Naomi Smalls.
But I also feel like that's a very 21-year-old answer. So, but I don't know.
Naomi has wisdom beyond her years in other ways.
I definitely think so. And I also think her, like, I don't want to be stuck in a box. Like, that also is a very, like, 21-year-old knee-jerk response to things. But I do think that Naomi has potential to do way more than she even thinks she's capable of. So, just look at how far, I mean, I don't know if miscongeniality applies here, but most growth?
Is anybody going to get miscongeniality?
I don't know.
Like, can I think of anybody, like, they're going to have to give it to Cynthia Lee Fontaine.
Oh, or not for those shorts.
No.
Maybe Robbie?
Maybe Robbie, because Robbie actually was not, like, Robbie had his share of shade, but Robbie didn't really, like, wasn't cruel to other queens. And often gave really good criticism from a place of friendship and sisterhood more than a place of I'm reading you and giving you advice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, are you going to stick with your top 3 prediction of Bob, Naomi, and Chi-Chi?
Yes.
And I still think it's a toss-up between Naomi and Kim Chi for the 3rd spot. And I think definitely Bob and Chi-Chi.
Yeah. I don't see them going anywhere.
I think Chi-Chi, like, pretty much secured her place. And Derek was totally right to praise her for this look.
It was great. And I feel like not enough praise was given to her voiceover. Because I thought that was also very good.
That's true. David Sedaris liked it.
Yeah.
And that's a really good critique.
Because I know that Bob is known for, being the comedy queen or whatever. But I also feel like Chi-Chi should get more credit for actually being a decent writer.
That's true. Because I felt like they just expect to say that everything Bob does is really good. They didn't really read his voiceover at all. I think they enjoyed it. But I thought the best ones were obviously Chi-Chi's. And David Sedaris agrees with me, so I'm in a good place there.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they'd come back as judges again.
They were so fun.
Like, what was that? Like, one of the best puns? She has a spastic semicolon.
Oh, God.
I'm like, oh, you are too cute. I would totally date you if you probably didn't already have somebody.
Well, I'm glad that's what you get out of it.
But we shall see who makes the final 3 next week, hunty.
Mm-hmm. Can't wait.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, I guess until then, we must bid adieu. Adieu.
But not before we plug everything from here till next Sunday.
Oh, well, duh. Like, you can find us on iTunes. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. It's free.
You can find us on YouTube. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. Durs.
Gambit Digital.
Yeah, girl.
That's the name of the profile to look for on both
YouTube, Twitter, and then you can find our writing or written down musings on the gambitmag.com website. If you enjoy Better Call Saul or Walking Dead, I've reviewed those in the recent past, so you can find those on the website.
Do people enjoy Better Call Saul?
Yeah, they do. It is.
That's a read.
It is what you would call a critically acclaimed show.
Yeah, well, I'm critical of this critically acclaimed show.
You've never even watched it.
I tried.
Mm-hmm. We're not here to hear your thoughts on Better Call Saul.
What? I think they are. Shady ladies can be shady about anything.
Oh my god. No, we are very specific in our shade, and it is to the RuPaul, the Ruverse.
It really stretches across the entire Gambit podcast network.
Yeah, well,
which is us.
You can take the girl out of the shade, but you can't take the shade out of the girl, okay?
No, you can't.
Mm-hmm. So
you can find us in all those places, and of course, you can follow our musings on Twitter. I'm at Samir Raculus.
And you can find me at Mark She Wrote, and you can tweet us your top 3.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what other people think of as the top 3. I mean, we kind of agree, but...
I mean, I feel like it's really hard between the 4 of them. I do not envy what the judges have to do.
Are they going to do another, like, fuck it, we'll have a top 4?
I hope not. I feel like hard decisions need to be made,
and
I don't want to make them.
Just stick to it, people.
I know.
But until then, we'll be back with that episode's review.
Mm-hmm.
And I bid you a shady good evening. And
bye!